Yeah, so I just got an email not long ago, like about a week ago, that I've been kicked out of school for another year.
A year?
A year.
And the crime was?
The crime was the usual, quoting Mark 10:6. They also didn't like that I said male breastfeeding was pedophilia. The other issue, more recently, they started scrolling through my Twitter on a meeting with me, and they took issue with Jason Aldean's Try That in a Small Town. They took issue, I was in Atlanta, Georgia, hanging out with the Warrior Poet Society, and we did some firearms training, and I posted a video of that. They also took issue with that.
So they're essentially spying on you. This is 1984 on steroids, it seems.
Exactly.
That's exactly what's happening. These people are saying they want equality and they want tolerance and they want acceptance. They don't. Really, their actions show that they don't. Maybe they think they do in their words, but their actions show that what they want is control and tyranny and to exclude those who disagree with them. And that's just human nature, right? If we're not careful, we like the idea of being in control and powerful and more special and having rights for ourselves and not for others. And so here we are, and it's really too bad.
Tamara Ugolini here with Rebel News to bring you an update on teenager Josh Alexander, who has been a continued source of controversy in Canada for the crime of, well, expressing Christian beliefs at a Catholic school, if you can believe it. After much rigmarole with the school board, Alexander's lawyer, James Kitchen, has finally had his appeal heard of Alexander's case, which saw him excluded from the school environment completely. But none of it can be made publicly available due to sweeping and rigorous publication bans instituted by the Renfrew County Catholic District School Board. So we're going to catch up with Kitchen now to get an update on this case and delve into its implications for free expression in Canada and the protection, or I guess lack thereof, sincerely held religious beliefs and convictions that challenge the prevailing orthodoxy of gender ideology, a theory that disregards the safety and security of women and girls and is increasingly immune to criticism, treated instead like a protected theory. Check it out. Well, thanks, James, for joining me on Rebel News to discuss this case with Josh Alexander. For our viewers who are not familiar with what happened to Josh, what are the charges and allegations against him, and where exactly do they stem from?
Sure. So people might remember last winter, January, February, March, Josh Alexander was kicked out of school basically because he said, look, there's only two genders and the boys shouldn't be going into the girls' washrooms. And he said this as a manifestation of his Christian beliefs. And he said this at a Catholic school, okay? So the Catholic school responded by saying, well, that's bullying of trans kids. We don't allow bullying, and we kick kids out who bully. So you're kicked out. And that's not really what happened. What really happened is in November, he said these things, and he organized a student protest walkout to raise awareness about this. And the school didn't like that. And so 2 days before, they threatened everybody who was thinking of going with losing their transportation home, and they suspended Josh. And they needed a reason to point to for why they suspended Josh. And so they used the bullying tact, and that's been their tact ever since. And they've excluded him, segregated him, physically segregated him from the school on this false basis that he's a bully and he's threatening to the trans kids, and so he can't be there. And that led to us appealing to 3 school board trustees of the Renfrew Catholic School Board, and that appeal was heard last week. Yeah, so just briefly, Josh said, look, I want to go through this process. I want to appeal. The school board said, no, you can't, unless you involve your parents. And he said, no, I'm 16. I know what I'm doing. I've hired a lawyer. Me and my lawyer are going to do this. And we're allowed to under the law. And they said, no, we want your parents to be involved. And of course they want his parents to be involved. His parents were fired from the public school board for being Christian and for being his parents. And everybody knew that was going to happen. And we didn't want to bring his parents into it, right? And we said we shouldn't have to because the law doesn't require that. The law says you can withdraw from parental control when you're 16 and you run your own life, which Josh does. They disagreed. We had to drag them to court in order to get past that, which took 8 months. We won because, of course, the law was solidly on our side, and we won. And but that never should have happened. It was just a delay tactic. And so this appeal was heard now in November 2023 when it should have been heard in March or April 2023 because of all that.
And getting back to the reason why this all took place and the cumulative situation here was that Josh was really advocating for the safety of his fellow female students who were feeling as though they were being put at risk and in potentially risky and dangerous situations, having biological males being able to use the female restroom and arguably also change rooms at school.
Yes, that's right. I mean, it was that's a manifestation of his religious beliefs, but it's also what used to be common decency and common respect for women. Young women who, by the way, don't really get to consent to this. It's not like they voluntarily went to the bar and said, okay, I'm going to choose a bar where boys are allowed in the girls' washrooms. They have to be at school. That's the law. They've chosen the Catholic high school, which says something about what they want from the school experience. And then, and of course, they have to use the washroom, right? So they don't really have a choice, right? There's no consent there as far as I'm concerned. And so he's saying, look, they're having a hard time standing up for themselves, of course, because what happens? The trans kids intimidate them. Society intimidates them. They're told to just buck up and put up with it. And so I'm going to be a strong young man, an appropriate young man, and I'm going to stand up for these women who are having a hard time expressing their concerns. And I mean, good for him for doing so, right? And of course, these girls appreciate it.
And because of all that, he's now been excluded from his publicly funded education. And what does this mean for not only schools as a whole, but also free expression in Canada and our ability to access the amenities that we pay into, those publicly funded schools and institutions?
It basically means that if you decide to express your religious beliefs and they're not in line with the majority, which of course most religious beliefs aren't, you're going to lose your education. You're going to lose your job. You're going to get kicked off the board. You're going to get pushed out, kicked out, segregated, excluded from public society. You're not going to be equal. You're not going to be able to equally participate. You're going to have to count the costs and make that sacrifice. Most people aren't willing or able to do that, and I understand they shouldn't have to. Right? In a free and equal society, they don't have to do that. That's why people flee tyrannical societies to come to societies that are free and equal, where they can freely exercise their religious beliefs and still participate in society. This is like really basic, right? This is what Canada is losing. This is what you're seeing with Josh Alexander, Monique LaGrange, all kinds of other clients I can't talk about because they're not public. They're being segregated and excluded from society as second-class citizens because they've expressed their dissenting minority religious views. That's not a society that is worth living in. That's what's going on here. That's what's so awful about this for everybody, whether or not you're Christian or whether or not you think you care about free speech or freedom of religion now. You will care at some point in your life when you have your life ruined because you said something that went against the grain.
Mm-hmm. And the irony here is not lost on many, where there seems to be the hierarchy of rights, whereas the trans identifying students have all the rights, and someone who's saying, hey, I feel uncomfortable using a women's restroom with a biological male entering it at the same time is disregarded and also slandered, and in the case of Josh Alexander, segregated from the school environment altogether.
That's exactly what's happening. These people are saying they want equality and they want tolerance and they want acceptance. They don't. Really, their actions show that they don't. Maybe they think they do in their words, but their actions show that what they want is control and tyranny and to exclude those who disagree with them. And that's just human nature, right? If we're not careful, we like the idea of being in control and powerful and more special and having rights for ourselves and not for others. And so here we are, and it's really too bad.
And also seemingly to deploy intense intimidation tactics against whoever so much as questions the ideology behind whatever you're advocating. Now, the appeal's been heard. When do you expect to have a ruling on this, and how did it look in the courtroom? Because that's the other issue here, not the courtroom, but rather the tribunal. It was shut completely from the public's eye.
That's right. Entirely secret. There's a full publication ban on this. Nobody was allowed to attend. There was no recording of it. Nobody knows what was said in there. I can't. I'd be in trouble if I told everybody what was going on here. The publication ban went so far as to cover all the documents in secrecy. Even my legal brief, I submitted it to the panel. I said I wanted to make it public. They said, no, even your legal argument must be secret. We call it a publication ban, but just so you understand, in normal English, that is secret. This is a secret hearing, as secret as it could possibly be. Okay? That's not good. That's not right. That's not an open, free, democratic society. Okay? We have the open court principle. That's in direct violation of it. This is not a national security concern.
This kind of secret hearing would be unbeknownst to the general public if it weren't for the crowd-funded efforts of James Kitchen through Liberty Coalition Canada. Just as the Justice Centre for Constitutional Freedoms, the JCCF, and the Democracy Fund, TDF, do, Liberty Coalition Canada crowdfunds all of its legal defense through the generosity of supporters just like you. If you want to make sure that the progressive, ideologically absurd mob can be challenged legally through active litigation that supports those who otherwise would not be able to afford representation to challenge them, then please consider chipping in at libertycoalitioncanada.com, where you can also stay updated on Josh Alexander's case and others like it. Otherwise, only those with the power to hide behind secrecy with endless resources prevail. For Rebel News, I'm Tamara Ugolini. The proliferation of gender ideology in publicly funded schools that promotes and solicits sexual orientation and gender identity from students and minors is why we launched a campaign at stopclassroomgrooming.com. At that website, you can find all of our previous reports and chip in a few dollars if you'd like to support our ongoing journalism on this topic. Chip in if you can at stopclassroomgrooming.com.